Okay, so let's talk a little more about Sagitta. Last week I did a math video on them, basically comparing them to Money Corps, and I did a poll to see where people would rank them in terms of how good the cash economy is. And I was surprised. Some people agreed with me that it might be higher than you'd think, because it does start kind of poor. But yeah, anyway, let's look at it again. So it starts with 31 energy production to cash production, no tax. You draw a card with no tax, which is annoying because it'll mill half the deck. And then the ability is you get one cashback for every card with one tag that you play, and you get 4 cashback for every card with no tax that you play. Now, I don't think, I'm not gonna do the typical way I do the videos, because it's really not a bonus that's gonna direct your play, right? I mean, I think you basically go engine. That's the more you play, the better your eco gets, right? So I'm not really gonna do. It's the same reason I don't do a how to play Terractor video, right? So it's I usually do corps that are a little more challenging to play, like Polyphemos or Phobolog. But how to play Terractor is just build your engine, get all the cargo you can, and just win if your opponent doesn't do anything about it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see how the bonus affects specifically the cards with no tax, because there aren't that many. And the cards with one tag, you're not really gonna make any changes to your playstyle, because I mean it's just one more cash, right? So probably any card that's bad, it's still bad. One cash better. But let's begin with Preludes. And here's the really good thing about Sagitta. One, there's lots of Preludes with no tax, which means that so the weak side of their economy, it really is that they start with very poor, right? So usually good cash corps, Terractor, Credit Corps, Mons, they're like north of 45, Lakefront 2, Pre-Star, all of those, right? So above 45 cash would be like you're start to be a wealthy corp. Usually in the 50s. Sagitta starts with 31, which is really 35 because it has no tax, so it's gonna trigger its own bonus. And production, so it's more like you have that production is gonna end up being 20. But you are gonna build up your economy. Sorry, 18 really. You are gonna build up an economy slower, right? So it's really important to play Preludes with no tax, and that there are some very good ones, because that'll give you basically starting cash, right? That'll make your starting cash. If you manage to get through Preludes with no tax, it's now 43, right? Which is still on the poorer side, but now your no one tag cash bonus is gonna catch up easily to pretty much everything else, plus your 2 production, right? So and it's gonna catch up fast to things like Terractor. Unless they get a really good hand, it's gonna catch up fast. So the other thing is that there are a lot of good Preludes with no tax. Now, as you remember when I did my tiers, and I'm basing this on my tiers because this is how good I think the Preludes are. There was I think 7 Preludes in the top tier, and 3 of them have no tax. Focus Organization, which is the best Prelude that isn't completely stupid. You know what I'm talking about there. And then Metals Company, I think I universally love Prelude, and Rise to Power. A Prelude that I think made a solid argument that it's almost strictly better than Allied Bank, which is a lot of people's favorite Prelude. Right, I'll just make it quickly again. It's 3 production. Allied Bank is 4, but you're gonna get a TR from the 3 delegates you get, which is 4 production around later. And then you're gonna get influence twice because you're gonna win an election, and you're getting a point. So all of that to me makes it better. So 3 of the best builds in the game are you play them anyway, but now they give you 4 cash back. Then on the second tier, I have donation, Metal Rich Asteroid, Merger, which can bring another card, which can be another tagless card, Supply Drop, Huge Asteroid, and Great Aquifer. So these are all either good resource preludes like Donation, Metal Rich, and Supply Drop, or two of the best terraforming preludes, and Merger, which is weird, but it might actually be a bigger bump than the other ones. And then there's also Research Network, which, if you don't know it, when you play a card with a wild tag, it counts as no tags. So you actually get your. Here's a post from Jacob Frixelius explaining that. So, yeah, this counts as no tag, and Research Network is very good already. And finally, on the third tier, you have Double Down, Acquired Space Agency, and New Partner. So these are the first three tiers in my preludes, and there are 13 cards there. There's about 70 preludes, so that comes to about 20%. Yeah, 14-20%. So it's there's a good chance you get one. But then there's also a bunch of other preludes that are mostly in the mediocre tiers. So here's the bad news. Let's start with the bad news. The bottom tier of cards I would absolutely not play has Nitrogen Shipment, Society Support, Applied Science, and Nobel Prize. So I would not play these preludes even with the 4 cashback. So sad, but yeah. But then, like the mediocre and mid tiers, you have Head Start, Preservation Program, Executive Sponsor, Loan, Established Methods, and Recession. All are very situational, but they are playable, and with 4 cash, I don't think the preludes have as much of an effect. The 4 cash has as much as an effect on whether you play it or not as with cards, because preludes you only get 2, right? So you choose the 2 best ones, whereas with cards is okay, now that this card has no tags, I can actually just buy it and play another one, right? So there's no opportunity cost in not playing the good card, only in drafting, but not in playing it. And I'll get into that, but with preludes, I think you should still pick the best preludes. One of these might be just slightly higher enough in the last group that I mentioned, but mostly I'm just trying to say there are 13 really good preludes that have no tags, and that's really good for Sagitta. It makes it really playable, in my opinion. And really likely that you get at least one, and then your starting cash is 39, which is still low, but with 2 production, discounts on cards with 1 tag, it's a lot better. So I did check, and there are 36 with 1 tag and only 10 with 2 tags. So, like, the odds of you getting even 1 more cash or just 2 cash total are high, just because the number of preludes with multiple tags is very low. It's only 10. Against 36 with 1 tag and 23 with no tags. That being said, a lot of the no tags one are like 10 of those not good, 13 of those very good, right? But that's all I'm gonna say about preludes. Now let's talk about cards. And like I said, the thing with preludes is you're still gonna like the no tag thing is not gonna drive your decision. Even with 4 extra cash, like I think. Prelude value. I mean, there are some like loan or maybe established methods that actually the 4 cash brings it up. But for the you're never gonna pick Society Support, all right? Because with preludes you only get 2, so you're not gonna just waste that opportunity. With cards it's different because you can buy whatever number of cards you want on your turn. Now it shouldn't affect how high you draft it for the most part. But some cards that have no tags, they're really bad. But they do get better, and they are a lot more playable with Sagitta, right? So, I mean, still, the most of your bonus throughout the game is going to come from the 1 tag cards. That's going to be, 20 to 30, even 40 maybe in a very long game from that. But you're going to get a good, maybe... and then I think you probably maybe get at most 2 or 3 cards with no tags, but that's 12 cash, right? It's 12 cash back, and because cards with no tags are generally so bad, I wanted to analyze like how many are made playable by Sagitta, because a 4 cash discount on a card can be significant. So I sort of broke them into a few categories. And so the first category would be always good. So these are cards that you would play anyway without a discount, and now with Sagitta they're even better. Then there's good but situational, and these are cards that, they're good, but you can't always play them or you won't always need them, right? Then there's just bad cards, and then there's bad and situational, which they're not as bad as the bad ones, but they're pretty bad and they have like one use. So we'll get into all of that. And then I have a couple more categories after that, but we only get there with the expansions. So let's begin. On the base game, there's only one really good card, and that's Protected Habitats. I think even if it's late, this is worth playing. But early, there's so many times where you hesitate between protecting two or three plants, or playing your economic development card. And honestly, with Sagitta, you don't have to worry about it because you always buy Protected Habitats, but now playing it costs 1. So it costs a 4 total, and for 8 it's totally worth it, but now it costs 4, it's better, and now you don't really have to think about when to play it, right? You just, with Ecoline you play it immediately, but maybe if you're going for a, not super plant heavy, but have some plants, you want to play it early, but you also want to develop your economy, now you don't have to. That is, unfortunately, on the base game, the only good card with no tax. Let's go to good but situational. So there's 2 cards here, Greatest Cardman Consortium and Lake Marinaris. And yeah, like I said, like they can be good. Like Greatest Cardman is pretty punishing, not as good as Asteroid Mining, but Consortium, but stealing your opponent's steel production can be good, but you do need to have a steel and an opponent with a steel production, and it needs to be relatively early for you to play it. I think it's always worth it earlier. And also late to steal miner. Yeah, things like miner or industrialist. This is a 2 steal swing. After the game ends. So at 2, it's a lot more playable. And then Lake Marinaris is an awesome card that sometimes the oceans are done by the time you get to 0. Now you get a discount. So this one's not really affected. It's just a card that you're a little more likely to play than the other ones in this list because it's good. But like you would always play it if there are oceans left, right? So it's not affected by the 4 cashback, but yeah, now it's better. Now let's talk about the just plain bad cards, and that's Dust Seals, Micro Meals, and Rat Suits. Now all these cards are very cheap, which means that this is when the rebate matters more. So you're not gonna be drafting these cards high, but now you'll play them. Like if Dust Seals is in a draft, it's gonna come back to you at 4th. You buy it, you play it, and it costed 1, and it's 1 point, right? So you'd pay 1 cash for 1 point anytime, right? So, and you can play it immediately. Same thing with Micro Meals. You're paying 2 for an energy production. If it's early enough, that's gonna be a point by the end of the game. And Rat Suit's a little more expensive, so you're going to be paying 4. But it's 1 point and 1 production. So these are 3 cards that I never buy. But if I'm Sagitta, I wouldn't draft them high. But after they're sent back to me on the 4th or maybe even the 3rd, I would buy them. Depending on what the 4th card is, right? Yeah. So it is. These are 3 cards that I think they're not super influential, but are now playable because of Sagitta. And finally, let's talk about the bad and situational ones. So here we have 4 cards in the base game, which are Hackers, Insulation, Caretaker Contract, and Zeppelins. So Zeppelins is, I think, almost strictly to flip Banker. So again, if you're gonna play this, it's a bit like Marinaris, just less likely because it might be worth 10 points, 11 with a point on it. Then same thing for Insulation and Thermalist, except it's really cheap, but otherwise, like, it's usually not worth it. Because like you should be angling for your hit to end by the end of the game, and then Caretaker Contract, same thing. Like if you have 8 hit left, you probably should try to not make that happen, but now it's more playable. And the last one, and the more difficult one, is hackers, which I think has its place. If you are an engine corp and you're going against a rushing corp, I do play hackers, but it has to be like turn one. You have to have the energy, and it has to be that situation, right? Because if you're also a rushing corp, this actually hurts you pretty bad. Like you can't tank this. But if you're something like the reactor, you might find somewhere to get the energy. You're not in strapped for cash early, so you can wait for that 2 production to make up for what you paid for the energy and the card. And your opponent, like that might be one more generation you get to play because of that -2. So I do play hackers early on rushing corps with engine corps. That's the only time I do it, and I would keep it that way with Sagitta. So these are all bad and situational. I don't think they are more playable because of Sagitta, but they are a little better. But let's talk about expansions. So first, we gotta introduce a new category, which is, oh no, actually both of Venus cards, I would call them good but situational. So SolarNet and Luxury Foods. You know, if you have the 3 tags, you play these cards. I think that's pretty much a no-brainer. Like 11 for 2 points, it's totally worth it. And SolarNet, it's 10 for 2 cards and a point, totally worth it. So I would play both these cards. Usually they're not the highest priority, but now with the discount, like they jump up to good. So this, unlike the other situational cards, which are already very playable, I think these ones are just go from like not the biggest yeah, they go from like I would play them to like they're really good for me to play now, right? Because yeah, like SolarNet becomes 2 points for 7, and Luxury Foods 1 point and 2 cards for 6, which it's insane value, really. Because the 1 point is almost worth the 6, right? So like, you're getting 2 free cards. That's it for Venus. Prelude only added 1 card, but it's the one of the no-brainer always play ones, which is research coordination. So, I mean, end of game, I guess you don't, but now that it's free, like, you probably even play this in the last, like, Gen 7 and 8, to be honest. Because, well, it's not free, it costs 3, just the cost of buying it. And that's another thing. Any of these cards that you buy, all of the ones that cost less than 4, now it's a no-brainer to play them if you drew them instead of buying it, right? So yeah, even like Dust Seals becomes cash positive. But anyway, this is a card that you always want to play early. I think that extra tag is going to give you things with Earth Text, it's going to give you good things with insects, it's going to meet science requirements, uh, plan requirements. It's just good. Okay, now colonies. Colonies added a bunch of cards with no tags. And the first one, there's always to me that's, I'm gonna call it a no-brainer, and it's quantum communications. This sometimes gives you the 8 production right away. In a 4-player game, it definitely does, and it has a point. And now it costs 4, so it's gonna be cash positive the next turn, pretty much. So you're paying 7 for it. Okay, maybe 2 turns, but you're usually gonna get at least 4 production from this. In a 4-player game, you might get north of 10, and then you're getting a point. The only thing that made me hesitate was the science requirement, and yeah, it's high. It's not that high, but with Sagitta, you should go for Ingem, and you should meet this anyway, which is unlike the other situational ones. Like Lake Marinaris, you don't have control over the oceans, or maybe you don't have the steel with Great Escarpment. But yeah. Now, one for the good for situational one, which is, it's not good, it's a little weak, but it's not bad. It's Atmo Collectors, and with colonies, this becomes a way to trade. And now it's cheaper. So the other ones were pretty much situational because of requirements. This one is situational because you haven't found energy. If you have found energy, this is not worth it to me. If you haven't found energy and you need to get trading, then you play this. And the fact that it's 11, so again, all of this group is like you would play them in the situation, but now they're for cheaper, right? I don't have anything for the bad tiers. But I do have for the bad but situational tiers, which are floater leasing, which is a card that might get you some production, but usually it has to be late. If it like the more you wait, the more chance you have that it's bigger, but the less it matters. I might play this like for one production if I have 3 floaters now at the beginning of the game, but still. Airliners, which requires 2 floaters, gives you 2 floaters, 2 production 1. So it's actually decent if you can play it, but it's not good really. It's just like fine. And for 7, I think it does become a lot more playable, but there's still too many requirements on it. And last but not least, one card that was bad or situational is community services, and this stops being bad or situational. Now it was bad because you didn't get a lot of production. It was situational because even like at best you were getting 4, and you need to have 4 cards with no tax to play it, right? And even then, it's like you get 4 production for 13 and a point, which is fine. So now not only does this become 4 cheaper, but you also guaranteed to have 2 cards with no tax because of you, and 3 cards with no tax because of you, the card you drew, and this one, assuming this isn't the one you drew, which makes it already acquired company +3 and a point for +3 for a point. So this is playable turn 1. It's not as good as acquired company, obviously. Sorry, it's not +3, it's -1. So you're paying 9 for acquired company with a point now, assuming you can get either a prelude or the card you drew if you get this turn 1, which just makes this good. So this is one of the ones that to me go from unplayable to playable with it. Okay, and now I was waiting to discuss these 2 cards from the base game until I discuss community services, and that's Black Polar Dust and Cloud Seeding. These ones, they're also situational. They're kind of bad. I'm higher on Cloud Seeding than most people, but I think both of them become playable with the discount. So Cloud Seeding, just 2 plant production for 7 is really good. You still have to take the hit from someone. The ocean requirement is nothing. Like, you'll get there. But there's nothing that gives you 2 plant production for 10 total, right? There's moss. It costs 1 more, but also takes 2 plants. Nitrophilic moss, which I like too, right? So, I mean, it doesn't have a plant tag still, but that kind of works for us. And then Black Polar Dust. Yeah, I mean, now I'm getting, because you get -1 production. You're placing an ocean, getting -2 production, so you really get -1 production and 3 heat production. But now you're also getting 4 cashback, so I like that -1 production recovers a little more. The 3 heat production for 15 is not bad, right? Mohol is a little better still in ratio, and Mohol is a lot better. But now that this costs 11, like, yeah, that's goes to playable. So these are to me 3 cards that go from pretty bad or pretty unplayable to actually useful and playable. Unlike the micro meals and dust seals group of cards, which are just, they might not have any influence, but now I can play it. Same with like floater leasing and airliners. These ones may actually have a big impact on the game. And now with no tax are playable. Finally, this is the other mystery tier that I had. It's cards with no tax that I would always play because they're cheap, but they don't have an effect. So they're sort of what the bad tier becomes with the discount. So we have aerial lenses. You just need the thermalists in power. I mean, you won't play this late, but it's 2 heat production. You get a minus point. And you kill 2 plants. But you'll make up that point twice over if you play this early, because you'll easily get 2 hit steps out of it, and you're also killing 2 plants, right? and now you're only playing one cash for it. And then Productive Outpost is a card like you always like if you see this last in a draft, you take it and you play it because you know it's cash positive. Um, and now it's cash positive even if you didn't have colonies, which you shouldn't. I mean, you can actually, if you don't have colonies, you can still play this and gain one cash, which is funny, but it's not game breaking. So these two are cards that I would basically apply the philosophy you would now apply with Sagitta to like Dust Seals, which is I'm getting a free point, whatever. I'll take it last in the draft. And same thing, Productive Outpost is usually okay. I'm getting like 7 free resources, or paying 3 for the 7 resources. Uh, and Aerial Lenses, same thing, right? But now they jump to like I would play them a little more. So all in all, what you end up with is 4 cards that you would always play are just much better. 5 cards that you would always play in the right situation are much better. There's 5 bad cards, that out of which I think all but the first 3 are now always playable, just not don't draft high, and 2 that might be playable. So let's say 4 of these, just on average, 4 of these become playable by you. Uh, and then this group of community services, Black Polar Dust, also and Cloud Seeding also become playable. And I would argue that Productive Outpost and Aerial Lenses also become playable. Uh, the situational but bad tier is the only one that I think it's still like most of the time you're not gonna play those cards anyway. But that means that I think it makes around 9 cards that weren't playable, which just increases the proportion of no tag cards that you're gonna play. And the good thing is you don't even have to draft them; you get them late in the draft. And by the way, if your opponent blocks them, like if your opponent wastes one of its draft picks on blocking Dust Seals, then Sagitta is already working for you, right? So it's working better than if he lets you have it. So if you're going against Sagitta, don't block Dust Seals for Christ's sake. Um, but that means that you can like put basically no draft effort into playing some cards that are now free. Which I think that sort of solidifies between the very good preludes, the amount of preludes, with 1 tag, and the number of cards that become playable, not good but playable with its bonus. I do think Sagitta has a very good cash economy. I want to play more with it. Hopefully someday someone develops it into one of the platforms where we play it. But until then, you'll have to trust me. I think this is probably a top 5 cash economy in the game. But yeah, anyway, like I could be completely wrong, and people, I don't know, you might be screaming at me because it does start with 35 cash, but I just like I do think it's probably top 5, easily behind. So I know it's not top 3 because it's not better than Septem, Aridor, or Viter. Those 3 to me are the top 3 cash economies. This would be fighting Credicore and some of the other ones for the 4th and 5th spot. Uh, it might be like I might be super wrong, but I do think that. But anyway, that's all I have. Let me know what you think, and see you next time.